In this particular lesson, we are going to cover the study guide itself, what we are going to study and what are the topics. That is what we are going to discuss here. So we'll look at how the exam is organized. In fact, that will set the course of this particular training. So without further introduction, let's get into it. So this is the landing page for the Generative AI Leader certification from Google. So at this point in time, these are the four main areas which this particular certification covers: the fundamentals of generative AI, Google Cloud's generative AI offerings, which includes Gemini and relative services, techniques to improve Gen AI model output, techniques like agents, RAG, model context protocol, etc. Business strategies for successful Gen AI solution. This is more like how you can make money out of this whole thing, how you can implement things in a production scenario. At the moment in the market, that is one thing which is kind of being developed. Scale of Gen AI, impact of Gen AI. So this is a very important topic. I'll be adding my thoughts into almost all these topics in general. But overall, this is a high-level certification which can be taken by anyone. In fact, it has to be taken by everyone in my view. I'll be trying to reduce as much as code, but we will be looking at some code. You don't have to understand the code part, but just realize the fact that it is out there. Some of the things need that kind of explanation. So a little bit about the exam. So it is a 90 minutes exam, and the exam guide, we'll be looking into it. This is the cost for the exam. Validity, 3 years. 50 to 60 multiple choice questions. We'll see some of the examples. Pretty straightforward if you know all these four topics. I have looked myself. Pretty straightforward. And it is online proctored. So these are the steps we will be following. Understanding what is on the exam. Expanding our knowledge with training. That is what this particular training is all about. We'll be covering this in this particular lesson. Preparing with sample questions. It's one of the important things, but there are not a lot of sample questions as of now, but we will be creating some of the questions based on the study guide. So there are a few sample questions here. We'll be looking into it, and of course, schedule an exam and writing it. So next, what I would like to go through is the learning path and study guide. Also the exam guide. They are kind of overlapping documents, but the study guide is the most detailed syllabus of the certification, if you will. So there are two documents at this point in time. One is the exam guide, which is at this particular location right now. If you want to take down the path, I'll be mentioning this path in the description, but otherwise you can simply search for Generative AI Leader Certification Exam Guide. You should get this particular document. This is one of the documents. We will be going through this right now. Another document is the study guide. So this is the study guide. Again, pretty similar path, different documentation. Generative AI Leader Study Guide. This is a path right here. We'll be going through both of these documents. Another resource we have right now is the learning path. The path is this, the URL, and it has some video trainings and pretty much a course. Not very detailed, but it's a good start. We'll be going through these documents. Some of them are video training, some of them are activities. We'll be doing that in the end. We'll be going through this learning path just to make sure that we are not missing any topic. So another important thing, like I mentioned, is the launch sample questions or the sample questions. These may not come in the exam, but very similar questions will be come in the exam. So you need to log in, and pretty much this is the path for the sample questions. It's better launch it from here because it's a Google Doc, so the path can change. So you can go here. This is the root directory for the certification, Generative AI Leader, and in here you have the sample questions. You need login for this. I have logged in with my Gmail, and if you fill up these things, you'll get almost 20-25 questions, I guess. So those are the important resources I would like to mention at this point in time. Probably there may be more resources coming up, but at this point in time, those are the ones which is available because it's a brand new certification. Now the document first I would like to go through is the exam guide. So from this we can understand. If you want, you can pause the video and read through it, or you can read through the PDF itself. It's kind of high-level certification. It is not going into the depth of a lot of hands-on things. Like, for example, Azure AI 102, another training from myself, which is very hands-on and deep dive into the Azure AI services. But this is more generative AI, high-level certification. That's what this kind of means about. So this document has 4 sections. Because of that, this training also has 4 different chapters. One is fundamentals of generative AI. We have already seen these 4 sections, fundamentals of generative AI, and that covers 30% of the exam, as you can see here. And the next section is Google Cloud's offerings of these particular topics we have discussed. So we'll be discussing some general topics here and how Google has implemented different services. We'll be discussing Gemini, which is the most important generative AI solution. And in fact, at this point in time, all of my testing goes, Gemini is the best model, 2.5 Pro. The thinking model is so far the best model I have seen, doing pretty much everything, high accuracy, high level of intelligence. It's very impressive model, Gemini, at this point in time. It was lagging a while back, but now Google is heading this war of generative AI, as far as I understand. It will turn around. I'll keep coming up. Different competitors, Microsoft, OpenAI, Anthropic, Mistral, DeepSeek, a lot of players out there in the market. But session 2 is all about Google's offering of these particular services, and that covers 35% of the exam. 35%, which is by far the highest. And section 3, or the third chapter of this particular training, is all about how to improve the model output. This is one of the important topics if you're planning to implement something of your own. This is a thing you will be struggling with. Retrieval augmented generation, agentic, model context protocol, all different tips and tricks to improve the grounding. We'll talk about that. Reduce hallucination. These are some of the problems we will be facing. All these problems we will be discussing here and some of the solutions as well. And I'll be also talking about scaling these solutions. Some of the problems with these solutions are scale, for example, RAG, performance, security, high availability, resiliency, all these kind of problems. Not sure all these things are mentioned here, but we will be discussing in detail. So this is kind of my personal area of expertise when it comes to generative AI, so we'll be discussing that. And chapter 4 or section 4 is business strategies for successful generative AI solution. Again, kind of overlaps with the section 3, pretty much solutioning the whole thing, how we can productize or productionize the whole thing. So identity management, resiliency, MLOps, all those kind of typical corporate stuff out there. Accountability, safety and security, fairness, bias, data quality, all kind of problems we'll be discussing. It has a slight overlap with the grounding techniques, but this is more productionizing the whole thing and putting it into production for end user access. That's what this is more about. Again, mostly we'll be using Google Cloud and the services from Google Cloud to achieve these things. But otherwise, it is all about implementation of generative AI, security of generative AI, protecting the system itself, and then a responsible AI, which is nothing but the AI safety in general. So there are 2 different things here when it comes to security. The safety of the AI, making sure that AI is not hallucinating. AI is giving us the correct information. AI is not trying to manipulate things. That is this bit here. And this is protecting the system itself. No one is hacking into AI kind of stuff. So that is chapter 4 and the last chapter or section 4. Now, as the course progresses, we'll be keep coming back to this document, although we will be mostly focusing on the study guide in the next couple of upcoming lessons. But in case if you need, we'll be getting into this document to check a couple of things. We'll be keeping this document very handy. So we have seen and gone through the certification study guide. I recommend you yourself have a quick look into it, because that is what we are going to cover in the subsequent lessons. Top to bottom, we'll be looking at each topic. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson.